creates questions the human mind cannot answer. Out of reach, past all we can see, hear, and touch, beyond all we understand, lies the extraordinary.
Believe in the power.
The extraordinary is the chilling disappearance of a policeman's daughter, Patricia Lutz, after she fell under the spell of a man witnesses say was the devil on earth.
She never had any inclination to be involved in the witchcraft, the occult, Satanism, whatever you want to call it, that he was into. And all of a sudden, she had stepped off and she was working with him.
Their last traces were a few occult symbols and human bones. It is the clear premonition of disaster that came to actress Olivia Hussey.
He looked at me and he said, "Please take care of yourself, Olivia." And I said, "You too, Dino." It was almost as though our souls were saying goodbye for this moment in time.
3 days later, her husband, Dino Martin, was dead.
Have you ever had anything like this done before?
Not like this, no.
The extraordinary is the apparent remarkable power possessed by this young girl to see inside the bodies of others.
I keep coming back to this shoulder all the time.
Yeah, I know I have a bit of pain actually at the moment.
We test Melissa with total strangers.
I would love to spend some more time with her. I think she could do, for me, in the healing area, a lot of good.
The extraordinary is the man who knew for sure his lottery ticket would win against 30,000 others.
I was totally convinced that I was going to win it. No one could tell me any different.
He got his passport, booked holidays from work, and waited for the telephone to ring.
It just came out exactly as what the dream said it was going to do. It was just amazing.
Just some of the stories that lie beyond our normal understanding. Tonight on The Extraordinary.
3 dreams that came true. That remarkable tale later. Good evening. I'm Warwick Moss. The film Rosemary's Baby was dramatic fiction about the day Satan was born on Earth to actress Mia Farrow. It unnerved more than a few of us. But a number of people, including police and a respected journalist, are seriously wondering about an event that occurred right in the heart of Hollywood not so long ago. It involved a dark force that seemed to emerge from nowhere in the form of a young man, Robin D. Waters. His name still haunts many who crossed his path.
It was as though the devil himself came on Earth. As though he took human form and camouflaged himself among a community of misfits while he made his selection. And when he had made it, he took a young, innocent woman named Patricia Lutz by the hand and led her back to hell.
He was mean, evil. And it was able to reveal to one of the friends that he was the devil.
If indeed the witnesses to the satanic kidnap of Patty Lutz are right, the truth of her eerie disappearance from this world is known only in Hades. The only traces were left here on this remote hillside in the shadow of the famed Griffith Park Observatory in Hollywood. 2 skulls, a small pile of rusted demon symbols, and the evidence that finally confirmed the worst fears of friends who had tried to warn Patty Lutz 6 years earlier. She had come to Hollywood in the early 80s from her hometown of Baltimore, Maryland, a young woman with a failed marriage behind her, but happy, full of life, and brimming with personality. In that first year, she found a surrogate family of 3 ex-college roommates who'd come west for adventure in Hollywood, and she became the family's 4th member.
She was into yoga. She was teaching yoga and waiting tables. She was like a real plus in the household. She was very fun. Patricia was very fairy-like, you know. She had a very crackly, kind of fun voice, so.
Emerson Scott became Patty's closest companion for several months, but they never got serious because she wanted stability in a relationship, and he was on the move. Patty was bright and attractive and had no shortage of dates with young, rich Hollywood executives.
She dated a lot of different people. She was very outgoing. She had a lot of friends. She dated like a lot of record producers and those types of people. And everybody loved her. I mean, when you met Patricia, you loved her. She was a sweetheart. She was just, you know, real cute and real fun, and you wanted to be around her.
Like a lot of young out-of-towners in the early 80s, the group experimented with New Age spiritualism. And one day, they flirted with black magic. It was supposed to be for fun.
It was a romp. We were having a great time. When you're like, it was exactly what we all wanted. It was our early 20s, and, you know, we could do anything we wanted to and get away with it. And the truth of the matter was we were 4 people away from our families. We had no support to talk to and guidance. Patricia was the kind of person, she believed that you, whatever you want to do it. She didn't think anything about it. She wasn't even involved in it.
For a year, the family in the 4-bedroom house between Hollywood and Sunset Boulevards was happy-go-lucky.
Hi, Dad. It's me.
Patty called her ex-policeman father back home in Baltimore at least 3 times a week. She loved her restaurant job. She was healthy, strong, and she knew what she wanted in this world. Nothing about her new life seemed to leave her exposed to the eerie force that was about to consume her. The evil came in the form of a tall, sallow stranger who entered this household's midst late in that first year. They'd met him in the black magic classes. His name was Robin D. Waters. His head was shaved bald, and he moved and talked with a kind of mystical power that for a time left the entire household spellbound.
Concentrate and feel the energy. Believe in the power. Believe in the power.
He convinced them he could call down spirits.
Do you feel free?
And led the house in astral travel to the surface of Venus.
Robin said, do you want to go back to Venus? And I was like, yeah, sure. And we all kind of like touched hands, and then it was like a volcano exploding inside of me. We were back in this gaseous state of little like blue energy spheres and larger white energy spheres.
He amazed them by stopping the sand in an hourglass at will.
Make the sand stop. Make the sand stop. Concentrate, you can do it.
There was one occasion when keys were locked in a vehicle.
Ralph, I lost the keys in my car. Dang it!
Okay.
Waters simply stroked the side window with the palm of his hand. And the knob popped up. A Los Angeles Times writer, David Farrell, who researched a book on Robin Waters' bizarre time on Earth, gathered many more stories of his psychic powers.
I think when Robin entered the picture, he brought a much darker element to their dabblings in the occult. And he seemed to have, to them, real power to do things like, they said he could change the shape of his face, or he could stop the sand from going through an hourglass.
Little was known about Waters' background. he was said to have once been a dancer. Other rumors said he was dying of cancer. All agreed, though, that wherever he came from, it was a dark place. And the first to resent his presence was Emerson Scott.
He had that shaved head and a goatee, and the way he presented himself, he always wore black. He didn't work. He didn't have a job. I mean, all of us were working. We all had jobs. We all were actually trying to do something with ourselves, and he was on this big pedestal by everybody for being the superpower.
There was something different about him, and women fell under his spell. Before Patricia, there had been another.
She happened to mention to him that she could not have children. And according to her, at that point, Robin dumped her very coldly and began pursuing Patricia. And the theory developed later that, that he was interested in having children somehow to, as part of this whole occult thing that he was into. In fact, the one surviving male roommate told me that he believed that, that Robin wanted her to have Satan's child.
And almost immediately, Robin Waters moved in on Patricia Lutz. It happened during a 3-week period when Emerson Scott got a bit acting role in New York, a rare break in his acting career that Scott says he naively thought was brought on by his witchcraft affirmations.
I mean, somebody came in out of the blue in the restaurant and gave me a free airplane ticket to go to this thing. Somebody else lined it up for me. So I'm thinking this is like, you know, through my affirmations and writing down all this stuff.
But the positive signs he imagined were about to turn dark and ominous.
He had more than likely instigated my whole trip to get me out of town, because while I was gone is when he took hold of Patricia. And he needed me out of the way to get to Patricia.
And by the time he got off the plane back in Los Angeles, it was too late. The scene Scott met at the airport told him Patricia had fallen deeply under Waters' spell, perhaps irretrievably.
They picked me up at the airport and they're bald, both of them. Patricia shaved her head to emulate him. And that night when I mean, the feeling of riding back to the house from the airport with them in the front seat with their arms around each other and their bald heads, I was pretty destroyed.
From that day on, Patricia entered Robin Waters' shadowy world. She did not leave his side, ever. He had absolute control and lived with her in her bedroom at the rear of the Hollywood house. Before long, she announced she was pregnant. Patricia would stay locked in her bedroom with Robin for days at a time, performing rituals, entering their spirit world.
She never had any inclination to be involved in the witchcraft, the occult, Satanism, whatever you want to call it, that he was into. And all of a sudden, she had stepped off and she was working with him.
Suddenly, one day, Patricia and Robin handed out bizarre invitations to their white wedding, a title taken from a Billy Idol song about death and suicide.
We ask the powers that be to bless this union of Robin Waters and Patricia Lutz.
It was held in a small chapel set up behind a black magic shop in Hollywood called the Ram Center. The bride and groom wore black.
There was about 100 candles lit white in different colors. And this is where we had taken our witchcraft classes. So now we're back at the same place again. In the middle of the room was this high priestess who I was not familiar with in the middle doing the ceremony. When I got there, she was in the middle of some sort of speech talking about the two of them and the love for each other.
I vow my spirits to merge with you.
I vow my powers to be with you.
I vow my love to merge with you.
I vow my love to merge with you.
I love you.
I love you.
Later, on their wedding night, Patricia and Robin gathered all their guests, except Emerson Scott, in their bedroom. And those that were present all told of a moment where Robin's true purpose on earth became apparent.
He was showing all of them his different faces and who all he had been in his past life, and all the different lives he had been. where he would change his face from a man to a woman, and finally showed them all that he was a devil.
The next night, Robin Waters and the young woman under his spell packed the couple of meager items they had not sold and announced they were leaving the house for good. A few days later, each of the roommates and other friends received ominous goodbye notes in the mail, and what seemed a strange reference to their remains and a spot in Griffith Park in Hollywood. Nobody wanted to believe it was a suicide note. It was just another bizarre ritual devised by Robin Waters. They showed the notes to police, who checked out Griffith Park and found nothing. And for 6 years, everyone believed Robin and Patricia were wandering some part of America, lost but safe in their own spiritual world. But then, on this Sunday afternoon, detectives got a report that led them to an eerie scene, beside a tree, in a remote gully, in the shadow of the Griffith Observatory.
Sonny. I think we got him.
A small collection of rusted occult symbols, the sun-bleached bones of 2 human skeletons that had met their fate here many years before, and 2 handguns. Police now say that Patricia Lutz and the man who controlled her must have stood side by side. Each pointed a gun at the other's head and fired simultaneously. It was a meticulously planned final act, as though the devil himself had come on earth, taken a young, innocent woman by the hand, and led her back to hell.
One of the most spiritual and fascinating people we've interviewed for this show is the actress Olivia Hussey. She's made many movies and for 3 years was married to Dean Martin's son, Dino, before his tragic death in a plane crash. As you'll see, Olivia is not your average celebrity, nor your average woman. After she appeared in the movie Romeo and Juliet, Olivia Hussey was labelled by Hollywood and a lot of critics as the most beautiful woman in the world. Her appeal as Juliet certainly had dramatic effect on the son of Dean Martin. Young Dino left the theatre and jumped on a plane to London.
Dino saw it on screen and said, "Oh, I love her. That's the woman I'm going to marry."
A lot of years have passed since they were the handsomest couple in fan magazines. Dino died in a plane crash in 1987, and Olivia now lives with 6 dogs, a parrot, a cat, 2 90-pound pot-bellied pigs, her lover, a young son, and a new daughter in a canyon outside Los Angeles. She has always been something of a loner, if not a mystery woman in Hollywood. A woman who meditates daily, lives under the guidance of an Indian guru, and believes far more in the spiritual meaning of life than the average celebrity.
I feel my mother's presence, I feel my guru's presence, I feel Dino's presence around me. I mean, I know that, I truly believe that when you leave your body, your spirit just stays here. It's just on a different level. That's how I feel. A different vibratory level, and that we're all here now all the time.
In fact, Olivia believes she had a premonition of Dino Martin's death 3 days before the plane he was piloting plunged into a remote mountain range in California. They had been divorced for many years, but remained good friends and parents to their son, Alex.
Dino was my best friend for 4 years before we ever spoke about marriage. We married, we had problems, we were just too young. You know, we had this beautiful baby, and we just both felt like teenagers, and we grew apart. But he moved out, and the next morning he called me and said, "I feel so strange." And I said, "Well, come over and I'll make breakfast." So he moved out, but he was coming over every morning for breakfast, and it was nice. Dino remained until the day he died, one of my best friends. We spoke every day.
Their final meeting was a special one. It ended with an exchange of love that has remained vivid in Olivia's mind ever since.
This meeting, we went to see a doctor about Alex, and we were talking, and we went down to the parking lot to say goodbye. We were getting into our separate cars, and for a minute, we both turned around and we stared at each other, and there was no one in the parking lot. And I got this funny feeling in my chest, and he looked at me, and I almost said, why don't we go and get some lunch? And he looked at me and he said, please take care of yourself, Olivia. And I said, you too, Dino. And he said, yes. And he said, you know, I always love you. And I said, yes, same here. And he left, and 3 days later he died. It was almost as though our souls were saying goodbye for this moment in time. But I got into my car and I called my best friend. I said, I had the strangest meeting with Dino. I don't know what I get goosebumps thinking of it. I don't know what it means, but something's up, and I don't know what it is. And of course, it didn't occur to me. You know, that morning he came, picked Alex up, took him to the Air Force Base with him. And Alex called me from the base and said, Mom, I don't want you to be alarmed, but Dad was in the plane and he went off the radar screen. And I said, what do you mean he went off the radar screen? I don't understand. They must find it. Maybe it's something to do with the machine. He said, I don't know, but we're coming home now. And they didn't actually find the wreckage or the bodies for 5 days after that. So I still cry now. That's tough.
And in the years since his death, Olivia says she has experienced his presence in her daily life.
Well, the couple of times he came, he just said, I'm okay, I'm fine. So don't, mourn too much. And, I think it took him a while to accept the fact that he was gone, because he loved his life so much. He was one of these people that was a jack of all trades, He loved to fly. That was his big passion, flying. He was a great pilot. But then he just recently, he'd done a series on television, and he was going in for readings, and Dino was always the one, I'll race cars, and I'll race dirt bikes, and I'll do anything that's different. It was almost like he had a very little time on this earth, and he wanted to do everything. That's a young spirit, He was really, really a special person.
I had the feeling that something was going to turn out just right. Ever had such a strong premonition that when that special thing happened, you just knew it was going to? There's no medical or scientific reason behind such feelings, but they do happen. Just ask Peter Munday of Perth, Western Australia.
Coming up this hour, your chance to get on the 94.5 standby list for one great show after another. Plus, we'll play one great song after another.
Well, thanks to Diet Coke, we're about to turn someone's dream into reality.
That seemed like a good throwaway line at the time, when Perth radio announcer Bob Stewart launched his latest on-air competition in August last year. But little did he know just how accurate that line would be. Dreams would come true and send a Perth couple off on the holiday of a lifetime.
It generated a great response because it was a fabulous prize. The first part of it was the trip to Germany for the reunification concert featuring Rod Stewart, Joe Cocker, Tina Turner and Prince. That's the ultimate show. And then off to London for 4 of the Andrew Lloyd Webber shows, which people queue for miles to try to get into. So it's no wonder there was a great response, and for Peter Munday, it paid off.
I kept telling all my clients, I'm going to win the trip. And I dreamt that I'd won it. And if I hadn't have done, I don't think I could have called on anyone in after that, because, I told everyone that I was definitely going to win it.
Peter Munday and his wife Jenny are raising a young family in the suburbs of Perth. He's a director of an office supply company, a small businessman who always tries to think positive, too practical to sit around thinking about dreams and premonitions. Then he decided to enter Radio 94.5 FM's One Great Show After Another contest. And with that decision came a fairly hazy dream about winning the overseas trip. Then a second dream. A week later, there was a third. And this time, the premonition became clearer and the prospects infinitely more exciting.
The second week it was a lot more real, how I'd won it. And I dreamt that I was at work and I was working at the fax machine, and the phone went and the partner said, "Good morning, Elite Office Supplies."
Good morning, Elite Office Supplies.
And that was the dream. And I told Jenny that I dreamt that I'd won it, and she just laughed at me. She didn't believe me at all.
We're sending 4 couples to Europe this Wednesday for the ultimate live experience. Rod Stewart,
By now,
Joe Cocker,
entries in the competition were pouring into 94.5 FM by the thousand. But Peter Monday was convinced he already knew the winner. So convinced, in fact, that he decided to renew his passport. It was out of date, and without a new one, when the big day came, he wouldn't be able to leave Australia.
You'll be leaving on Wednesday if you win.
I had to go down to a chemist, or I had to get a JP to sign my passport. And when I went in there, a friend of Jenny's works there, Maureen, and I said, "Can I get the passport paper signed?" She said, "Yeah," and she called the chemist down. She said, "Where are you and Jenny off to now?" I said, "Well, nowhere yet, but I'm going to win a trip." She said, "Where?" And I said, "To London and Germany." I said, "The one that's on 94.5. And she just laughed. She said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I dreamt that I won it." She said, "You're kidding." I said, no, I'm totally serious. I said, "I'm definitely going to win the trip." But I said, "I've got to get my passport done."
Peter really was anxious about his new passport. The draw was not far away, and the takeoff for Europe was only a couple of days later. So he decided to lodge the application at his local post office. There again, he outlined his premonition. There again, the woman behind the counter was incredulous.
She said, "Oh, when you're flying out?" And I said, "Well, I'm flying out on the 1st. And she said, "You're cutting it fine." I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, I haven't even won the trip yet." And she said, "What are you talking about?" And it's the same story. I said, I dreamt I won the trip." And she said, she just looked at me as if I was weird. She said, I said, "Well, I hope you'd win it," but I don't think she was too confident in what I was saying.
So let's go to the barrel and draw a winner.
By the time entries closed, there were well over 30,000 of them in the barrel at 94.5 FM. The odds against Peter Monday and his dreams were overwhelming, but he was about to overcome them.
Oh, hello, is Peter Monday there, please?
Exactly as Peter had seen in his third dream, at that very moment, he was at the fax machine. 94.5 FM was playing in the background. And his partner did actually answer the phone.
Good morning, Elite Office Supplies.
Oh, hello, is Peter Monday there, please?
Certainly, I'll just put you through it.
And all of a sudden, I heard him say, "Good morning, it's Elite Office Supplies." And I said, oh, I just went bonker. I mean, the adrenaline rush, you had to hear it. I mean, it just came out exactly as what the dream said it was going to do. It was just amazing.
You're flying Singapore Airlines to Germany this Wednesday afternoon.
Peter Monday had won, a huge surprise to just about everyone. Everyone, that is, except Peter himself.
Well, he didn't seem to be as surprised as I thought he might be. And now we find out there was a reason for that. It's because through some sort of premonition, in fact 3 dreams, he knew all along that he was going to win. And the odds against him winning were enormous.
Still ahead was the trip to Europe and tickets to all those fabulous shows. Still ahead, too, was breaking the news to his wife, Jenny.
It was a couple of hours before we could sort of reach each other. And, I mean, I was so excited and just lots of feelings, I guess. One of disbelief, and then I thought, gosh, dreams do come true.
It was a trip Peter would never have been able to make if he hadn't had his premonition and raced to renew his passport.
It was probably once in a lifetime dream, but it was so real when I had it. I was totally convinced that I was going to win it, and no one could tell me any different.
Viewers will remember a young girl named Melissa. Some time ago, we told how Melissa appeared to have the power to read people's auras. That is, she could tell total strangers all about themselves by simply moving her hands around their bodies. She revealed her talents to one of our producers and told him things that no one could possibly have known. So we decided to test Melissa with other people she had never met. One of them, a very familiar face on Australian television.
Gee, you got a strong aura.
Have I?
Yes.
I wouldn't have thought I had one at all, but...
Oh, everyone has. Gee, it's really cold around your back here. In there.
What does that mean?
Oh, it could possibly mean that you get pain in there.
Yeah, I've had a bit of pain in the back over the years, but then I'm sure everybody has.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly a very familiar face, and apparently a skeptic as well. We'll find out how Melissa fares with actor John Wood in a moment. But first, let's go back to the beginning. We first met her in Tasmania, where she works as a hairdresser in a little country town. But the word there is that Melissa has been able to communicate with spirits since she was a child, a power she's been able to hone into the art of aura reading.
You really hurt your right hip just there at one time or another. Sometimes it aches and gives you trouble.
A few weeks ago, we showed you the results of an encounter between Melissa and one of our producers. They'd never met before, but without even touching him, she seemed to be able to tell just where he had problems with his health.
The things that you were absolutely correct with was the back pain, definitely in that region. I have it all the time, although it's been correcting. I work out with weights, so the upper arms is what you felt without ever touching me. The headaches I get, I believe, are tension headaches, but I get them as much back here as I do here. So I don't know whether they are related or not. The hip and the left leg, which you pointed out, were an accident, a ski accident.
Oh, right.
Which brings us back to the present and a new encounter of the first kind between Melissa and Rosalind Woodward. Again, the two had never met. Melissa knew nothing of Rosalind or her past.
Have you ever had anything like this done before?
Not like this, no.
Haven't? I'm just tuning into my guides here.
Melissa says that physically the power is in her hands. They're so sensitive they can detect the smallest changes in body temperature, and therein lie the clues to the subject's problems.
I'll just run my hands through your aura. What I'm doing is wherever I feel a cold spot or a warm spot, you see your aura's got different temperatures in it and everything. Like if you've had an injury somewhere, it'll be really cold and gluggy around that area. Either that or really hot. Picking up a real coldness coming from your back, it's like coming up and hitting you. You had any back injuries?
A long time ago, yes. I've had the odd torn muscle in the back from when I used to play sport when I was younger, but lower back, no, not really.
Any major operations?
Yes.
Around the area that I'm circling?
Yes.
Got quite a long time to go yet, you know.
She said she couldn't visualise any scars. That I've got a scar from the operations. I was a bit sceptical, yet I'm open-minded about this sort of thing. The more it went on, the more I sort of put myself into her hands and relaxed.
You can feel a lot of heat coming from me. It's because my guides are taking control of my arms. I can't help where they're moving it.
No, I can feel it.
We have to say that Melissa did not get everything right. Sometimes she appeared to be feeling her way through dark, uncharted passageways of Rosalind's life. And there was one thing she couldn't quite pin down. But as you'll see, she did edge close to the result, if not the cause.
There's also a lot of emotional things in there. A lot of emotional blocks that caused all this in the first place.
What Melissa didn't know and wasn't able to detect was the exact nature of Rosalind's trauma. We only found out later. You see, until 5 years ago, Rosalind was a member of the Victorian Police Force. That was when she seriously injured her shoulder during a particularly violent arrest. Injuries that forced her to have several operations.
It stopped my career in the police force. I could no longer be an operational police member, and in the end I was ill health retired from the police force. There was a lot of physical trauma and emotional trauma. I had a career mapped out for myself in the police force, and that was abruptly came to an end.
I might actually start to perspire when I'm doing this. You really need healing. Not the medical kind anymore, you need spiritual healing now.
I could feel something. I couldn't really focus in on it. I was finding it very hard to pick up exactly what she was saying. But something was there, yes.
In your bedroom, that's the place where you actually go to store all your pain.
With the bedroom, I would probably say that's the place I go when I do get to the stage where I'm in pain and I'm sick of the pain and I just want to hide and cry.
Melissa had identified a deep emotional scar in Rosalind's life. A very personal pain the former policewoman kept to herself. Would Melissa be able to look as deeply into the life of actor John Wood? We'll find out in just a moment.
Do I have to go into a trance or anything?
No, no, just be yourself, all right?
All right.
Seems to be the problem.
John Wood has been appearing on Australian screens and stages for longer than he cares to remember. In everything, from soaps to Shakespeare. We caught up with him while he was filming his latest hit series, Blue Heelers.
Hold it! First man who throws a punch goes straight into the cells, understood?
He had no idea who Melissa was. She thought his face was familiar, but couldn't put a name to it. After a few false starts, though, a few readings that missed the mark, it seemed Melissa was getting closer to John's aura.
They keep coming back to this shoulder all the time. They keep circling that shoulder. No, it's really warm. I don't think you've injured it, but I'd look out for it.
Yeah, I know. I have a bit of pain in it actually at the moment.
All right.
I think from playing cricket.
You injured one of your knees.
I've injured both of them actually, I think.
Have you?
Yeah. Well, I was supposed to get something done on that one, and I don't think I ever did.
You should.
She picked up on the fact that I'm having a bit of trouble with the shoulder at the moment. The lower back stuff is quite genuine, and the knees too. I mean, I've had a lot of trouble with my knees over the last few years.
You feel that?
By now, John Wood, the skeptic, may not have turned believer, but he was beginning to wonder, especially when Melissa moved on from the past to the future.
I think you're going to take a pretty hard knock on the nose at some time. Because it feels like it's been broken across there. When I pick up these things, I can actually feel it.
Right.
So I think you better look out. Across there.
It hasn't already happened.
I can't tell if it has or hasn't, but I can see balls coming at you, whack in the face.
Oh, well, no, I had one, a cricket ball once.
No, don't.
Yeah.
Have you had problems in your chest?
Not from memory, no. Don't tell me that's for the future as well. I don't know about the old heart thing here. I'm not too, I might go have a check-up. I'm not too keen on that.
Go and get checked. Something in there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Finally, back to Rosalind Woodward, the former policewoman who suffered physical and emotional pain after she was badly injured doing her duty. You'll remember, Melissa was able to tell Rosalind she'd had an operation and that she was suffering trauma, even though she didn't know why.
You can feel a lot of heat coming from it.
This is what happened toward the end of their session together.
If you use my guides, you're going to feel lots of heat and tingling going in through your back, and I'm going to push all the gunk that you've got inside of you out, and I'm going to grab it with this hand, and you will feel it. You will feel me drawing it out. You'll have this funny sensation of me needing you, pulling at you.
You could feel the emotional garbage or being sort of dragged out of your body and leaving it, which sort of gave you a tingling type sensation through the body.
Drawing it out. Actually feel all the darkness and pain removing itself.
I feel she's definitely got some special gift. Exactly what, I'm not sure. I would love to spend some more time with her. I think she could do, for me, in the healing area, a lot of good. I think she's quite incredible that way.
You feel normal again now? Good. Okay. You done?
During that session, John Wood revealed he had dealt with the paranormal once before, at a séance where a tragedy was predicted. The prediction came true. More on that in a later show.
Like that, but there's absolutely no question that that particular experience was absolutely real, and I thought, well, I don't want to muck around with this because I don't like it, whether it's collective minds or something that does it. But there's absolutely no question that we got that message at that time.
Who is convinced he lived a previous life.
What was I in my immediate past life?
I see you as a German. I see flames in the darkness of the sky. An engine is alight. The plane is going straight down. I feel sucked down to the ground, straight.
Ken Llewellyn says he was once a German Luftwaffe pilot who was decapitated during the Second World War. An untold story. Next time.
And also coming up, one of the most remarkable stories you will ever see. It's about ghosts caught on film. One very famous case of not so long ago in Hollywood, and another case that hardly anyone knows about. For now, good night. See you in the future.
I'm not one for getting into ghost stories, so to speak, but this has left quite an impression as to why this would appear in this particular instance. I had no explanation for it because it was not there when I shot it. It's quite, it's very haunting.